Thank you so much for coming. I really am looking forward to seeing you guys and sharing with you this system. So I'm going to share how to build a referral pipeline system that I've created over my entire lifetime and working with other customers. And I have whittled it down to an easy to follow system. And you've got workbooks so that when you walk out of here, you've got a plan you can enact. So the agenda looks something like this. We're going to talk about why referrals are so much harder to get than they used to be. And then the anatomy of a high income producing referral pipeline. Got some activities for you in your workbooks. And then we'll take a little break, come back, do the other activities, and then we'll start creating your plan and do a little practice run. So there'll be some interactivity, and you guys, let me know if you want to talk, just interject anywhere you want to. So can anybody guess why we have so much more of an uphill battle to get referrals than we used to? Social media, maybe, just lots of messages. There's also some other data around after the crash in the economy, sales in general changed radically. And so have you heard of the Challenger method, the Sanders method? There's different sales methodologies, and the bottom line is that we have to be much more proactive. So just building relationships isn't enough. We have to find ways to be very proactive. But yeah, so much information, our brains are just full. Think about you have to remember things for work, and then you forget somebody's birthday, or you airball on an appointment or whatever, because your brain is just so, I feel like the hard drive is just full. And the overload just makes it really hard. So that overload, which everybody suffers from, it makes it harder for us to get through with a message. And of course, marketing and sales is all about how do you stand out? How do you get your message through and stand out? So I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you two stories. One is about a referral that I got that got me a job. But it was 17 years in the making. And here's how it goes. I was working at Dell, and I was managing the Dell website, and my manager was a great guy. He's a great guy. And after I had 2 babies, I stayed home to raise kids for a little while, and then I went back to work. And I chose 2009 and 10 to go back to work, which was not ideal. And it was tough, but I got a job, I worked my way back up, and then I was interviewing for a position as VP of Marketing, and the COO wanted to talk to a supervisor, somebody who had directly supervised me. Well, I couldn't use the current boss, and I thought that there weren't any for 10 years, and I went back to Kenny Hill, who had been my boss at Dell, and I texted him because I'd stayed in touch with him over the years on social media, and he said, "Sure, I'm happy to do it." And because I had to get creative, it was really tough. And I was so glad that social media had been invented, because that's a great way to stay in touch. So it's a double-edged sword, right? So the reason that we're on overload is partly due to social media, and the way we can nurture relationships is partly through social media. So anyway, this worked. I got the job. He sent me a text after he had the interview on the phone with the hiring manager, the COO, and said, "You're in." And I was. So I did my happy dance. And so I had gotten creative and found that working a good relationship, and I hadn't spent a lot of time nurturing that relationship over the years, but I'd spent just a little. And that's one of the take-home messages. This doesn't have to be a full-time, overwhelming job, and we don't want to bother people. We want to be politely persistent and help remind people how we can help them. So the next story is when I was selling construction equipment, which is in the 80s, and I was working for a company, and they hired me and put me in the sales territory that had the lowest sales. And nobody told me that I couldn't, so I ended up tripling sales. And they were like, "How did you do that?" And the way I did it was, I built relationships with these guys, these construction guys, and they weren't that easy to get through to, because they had a different attitude towards me than I was ideally looking for. They wanted they wanted to have a date with me, and or they wanted to spit tobacco on my shoes, which they did. And the other ones were nice. So there were sort of 3 categories. So one of them, this one was a spit the tobacco on my shoes kind of guy on this one job. And I thought, I've got to meet him where his head is. And his head right now is not in a place where it says, Margot knows what she's doing. She can bring something valuable to me. You know, I'm a construction guy. I know this world. She's a girl, a young girl. She doesn't know anything. So I thought, well, I've got to start there. So I got him talking about the project and what he's doing and what's difficult and what's easy. And I finally determined, after talking to him, what his biggest pain point was and that I could help him with these scissor lifts. And I said, hey, how about I just bring it out? You can use it. Let your subs use it. If it saves you time and money, then you can rent it from there on out. And the first day and delivery is on me. Then, at the end of the day, I called him and he said, oh, you can leave it. He wasn't super enthusiastic, but at the end of the day, I had won him over. And from there on, he referred all the other subs on the job to me. And this is how I grew my territory from 1 to 3x, and I did it in about 6 months. So the power of building that one relationship and then magnifying it over time is what is so incredible to me. Building relationships is helpful in business, it's helpful in personal, it's helpful in all that areas of our life. And why is that? Well, it's the glue, right, that binds us together. And it's how we can help each other. When we think about, you know, all of these disastrous weather things that keep happening, what happens? People come together and they work together to help others. And they do that because that's our human nature. We like to help and feel productive. And what's interesting about referrals is that people are 4 times more likely to buy when they are referred by a friend. That friend doesn't have to know anything. They don't need to know one single thing about that industry. But if the friend says they're good, then that weighs 4 times more than any other source of information. That's massive. That's Nielsen from Nielsen Ratings. This is in your workbook. It's the inside cover because I think it's so fascinating. So Etsy, 90% of their growth is from word of mouth. That's tremendous and amazing. Shopify says that word of mouth is their best form of advertising. It's the best for almost anybody, really. 92% of customers trust recommendations from people they know. People they know. So, and then there's reviews. That's from people they don't know. Referred customers are less likely to leave, so it's easier to retain them. And people will pay 2 times more attention to recommendations from friends. I could go on, but I think you understand the point. It is massively, and there's higher profit margin because you don't have as much effort to win them over or to keep them, and they're not as likely to be shopping based on price purely. So it's just easier. It's easier, but we have to have a system. And the close rate is so much higher. It's actually at 50%. Compared to inbound, which would be more like 25%. Now, big averages, right? It depends on so many things, but a 2x differential between other types of sourcing leads. And what's interesting is people want to give referrals, and they'll say, yes, I'll send business your way. 87% of happy customers say they will give you referrals. And only 7% of business owners or salespeople actually ask. Talk about leaving money on the table. Why is that? Why don't we ask? Well, kind of 2 big reasons. Fear and ego, probably the reasons for a lot of things, right? So fear is fear of rejection. We typically we're in the moment with the sale and making the customer happy, and that feels great. And we don't want to risk stopping that momentum. We don't want to risk a negative. So inadvertently, we don't bother to ask along the way. And then ego, well, who's familiar with ever being in a car with somebody who doesn't want to ask directions? There's if I ask for directions, if I ask for help, then I am weak. That's a crazy, limited belief we have in our heads sometimes. So those are the 2 things, the 2 biggest reasons why we don't ask. But look at that, 87% said, all you gotta do is ask, basically. So how do we take all of that stuff and turn it into a pipeline for ourselves? Well, it's not going to happen by magic. So we need a plan that has accountability, consistency, commitment, and what else? We review it and adjust as needed. So this is Dave Ramsey. I love him. A goal without a plan is a dream. Well, we want to take the dream and turn it into reality. And that's what we're going to do. So we're going to create a strategic plan. We're going to commit to executing the plan. We're going to consistently work it. We're going to hold ourselves accountable. And then we're going to evaluate and improve. Rinse and repeat. I like the rinse and repeat way to describe it. So how many of you guys are familiar with my RAISE program? Heard me talk about RAISE? Raise your revenue, give yourself a raise. Yes, Linda's okay. So the word RAISE stands, each of the letters stands for each of the steps. And they go like this. Respect. Respecting the prospect, the contact, the customer where they are. Not where you wish they were, not where you'd like them to be, but where they actually are. Asking questions and intently listening, because that's a way to connect with people, do the building and the know, like, and trust factor so that they feel comfortable with us. You can build rapport, and also that's a way to qualify and find out what they care about. I gave this advice to my daughter who just got a job recently, and I said, we asked them what success looks like for this job. And it's at Regal Theaters. So the response was, show up. So the bar's low. You know, which you might think they care about something, but they might care about something else. So asking gives you answers as well for how you can help. And then identifying how you can help. So it could be that you're networking and meeting with people and you can't think of a way right then and there that you can help, but maybe they know somebody who can, or you can think of somebody who can. And so identifying how you can help or how they can help you is really key, which, because you've asked questions and listened, you now have more information. And then showing, not telling. That's so much more powerful. So describing how it's going to look when you have helped them is so key. It's so helpful. It's much better to talk about the final end product than just talk about and describe what you're going to do. And then finally, inquire. So this is ask for the sale, ask for the help, ask for whatever it is, the referral that you're looking for. E is the British way to spell inquire, and it absolutely works, so you can feel free to look it up and double check. So the first thing we do is activate referrals from happy customers. You've already got happy customers, so we start there. Then we look for new potential other referring clients, colleagues, other people that we know and contacts, and then we activate those. And then we seek new referral partners outside of our, so it's like the stone goes in the water and the rings go out. So we start close and then we go out. So then we find other look-alike referral partners, activate those, and all the while we're nurturing all the relationships along the way, which, by the way, doesn't mean hand-holding and sucking all the time out of your day. It doesn't have to be like that. But nurturing is how you retain and build. So with all of that said, I want to help you guys start right now creating your referral pipeline. You good with that?
Yep.
All right. So here's the RAISE system, the 5 steps, and thinking about activating your existing customer base who are happy. You want to build into the system of communicating with them the expectation that you want the referral. So as you're closing the sale, referrals are the lifeblood of my business, and my goal is to deliver 5-star service, however you want to say this, and that's what I want you to do, is start writing start brainstorming, I should say, your script of what you feel comfortable saying along the lines of, it's my goal to delight you so that you will refer business, because that's how my business survives and thrives. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to start brainstorming on what you would feel comfortable saying, and if you want some help, let me know.